Hello everyone, welcome to another episode of Kev's Kitchen. This is the cooking show where we cook outside the lines, ditch the recipe, and rely on cooking fundamentals. In today's episode, episode 3, we are going to focus on our composed dish of a bone-in pork chop with sweet potato, greens, a simple barbecue sauce, and an onion. We're going to call this a hash because we're going to dice everything and make sure it's all the same size and it's going to cook at the same time. And so 5-ingredient flow. Let's get into it. Again, these shows are going to have 5 ingredients, a flow for easy execution on a busy weeknight. We're also going to share 2 tips and/or techniques and 1 cooking fundamental. Be sure to stay tuned to the end for our mise en place moment where I take cooking and tie it into our corporate work. Let's get into it. So again, bone-in pork chop, sweet potatoes, greens. We're going to dice and slice the onion, and then a Carolina barbecue sauce. It's got a little more acid, a little more mustard to it. And so we're going to get started here. I've gone ahead and pre-seasoned our pork chop. Now check this out. This is a bone-in pork chop. One of the things I love about a chop or a cut of meat with a bone in it is that's where the flavor's at. Anytime I cook this, you're gonna get a nice char or a nice sear. There's a lot of flavor that comes from that bone. It's a beautiful aesthetic when you go to plate it as well. And so we're gonna talk more about that in just a little bit. We're gonna sear this off, and while it finishes in the oven, we're gonna cook our vegetables. So pork chop, onion, sweet potato, and our greens. In this case, I've got Tuscan kale. You could use other types of kale. Or Cinto kale would be an option. You could use a mustard green. You could go with a collard green, if you will, even a turnip green or blend. And also, let's look at our sweet potato. And so this is a basic sweet potato that I went ahead and diced up and blanched. And so we par cooked this in boiling water with a little bit of salt. And so it's still got some texture to it, but it's a little softened. And so this is going to be a quick cook now and a quick saute when we bring our vegetables together. Let's go ahead and start our pork. We'll get that roasting, seared and roasted in the oven. And so again, when we sear, we want to preheat our pan, add some oil. If you've got a nice vent hood at home, you want to get a little bit of a hot pan with a high heat. You look for that sheen and shimmer, and we'll get a nice crispy crust, a sear on that presentation side on that protein. So give this a minute. I'll move this to the back stove and finish this in the oven. The oven is preheated to 400. You can do 375 if you'd like. And then we're going to walk through the vegetables. All right, again, the enemy of a good sear is moisture. And so I pre-seasoned our chop here a few minutes ago, and some of that moisture, you kind of see the salt's pulled out some moisture there. So if you need to, just pat it dry with a paper towel prior to going in the pan. You want to hear that sizzle. Let it talk back to you. We like that. And again, you want to control the variables here, starting off on a high temperature, reducing that. Once you start to see some brown color come to life there, you want to see that color kind of creep up the side of our chop here, and then we can almost set it and forget it for a little bit, focusing on the heat, controlling that variable, and then we'll flip it, cook it, finish it in the oven. A lot of people wrestle with pork. They say, well, it's overcooked or it's dry. So in restaurants, a lot of times we want to cook our pork to 145 degrees, like minimum internal temperature. And so that still leaves a little bit of pink in the center. If you've got a nice roast, a tenderloin, a chop like this, you can eat it what we might call under just a little bit. If you're comfortable with that, you don't have to blast it to the moon and cook it like 165 or anything like that, like we would maybe a chicken breast. And so getting a nice sear here. All right, so now we're going to let that do its thing. Now let's talk about our vegetables. And so again, 5 ingredients. We've got our pork started. Let's move on to our onion. So we have a basic sweet onion here. We're going to go ahead and dice and slice this together. If you've been with me for a minute, you know that I use an onion as metaphor for my work. And so one of the things about an onion is, let's be honest, it makes us cry. It's not that sexy on the outside, but like once you peel back the layers and you think about it in this way, you peel back the layers, you get to the core. That's life a lot of times. And so I think it's a beautiful metaphor to how we should live our lives and how we can unpack and peel back layers as we evolve, as we elevate, as we develop our potential. We can think about the onion. Now, we're going to peel back these first papery layers so that we can slice it. And we're calling this a hash. Typically with a hash, everything is cut in the same size. So think about your favorite breakfast spot. You've got maybe some diced peppers and onions, something else to go with that, but they're all relatively the same size. And often that's like a medium to large dice. I'm going to sheet this one a little bit. A medium to large dice. So tip number one is when you're cooking something like a quick saute or even a hash, if you cut the vegetables roughly the same size, then it tells us that they're going to cook in roughly the same amount of time. So again, you cut the vegetables in the same size, they're going to cook in the same amount of time. Let's flip our chop here. Got a lovely sear. I don't know if the whole candle thing works or not. Some people will swear by it. We're going to peel back our onion here. Okay. So get rid of some of the garbage bowl here. I like that. Keep your workstations clean. And so that's doing its thing. We're going to pop that in the oven. And let it cook. Now, we're going to bring that up to temp while we bring our vegetables together. And so we have our onion here. One of the things I like to talk about with the onion is, so you notice that there's some natural lines. I call it striations, natural lines in our onion, and we have our root. And so I leave that root on there so that when I slice it, the layers don't fray out. They don't spray out. And so when you go to dice it, for example, depending on the width of your cut, you just want to make equal cuts. You want to tuck your fingertips and make equal cuts throughout that onion. We're going like 98% to the back, but not all the way through. So that we've made our first cut. This is one of 3 cuts, and so we've gone this way, down. We're going to go into and across, down, into and across. I also like to put a little pressure on top. Kind of keeps our petals together. And you're going to cut across. And I like to kind of pinch the sides here so that, again, it doesn't fray out. You can get a nice, clean, even cut. And that's what you're looking for here. You want things to cook in the same size or be cut in the same size so they cook in the same amount of time. So we have our onion. That'll work for our recipe today. I will show you while we're here. This would be the medium diced onion. If you want a julienne, you simply follow the lines here. And so if you want a julienne and onion, sometimes I'll kind of go like a rainbow to go with it. It gets a nice even cut. Or you can just go across, but we're just going to cut strips. This would be our julienne for the onion, okay? So nice julienne onion. And that's great for maybe a stir fry, something of that nature. All right, so pork's in the oven, diced onion, pre-cooked sweet potato, and our Tuscan kale. I like this dish because it's simple. The flavors are balanced. It's got like color and texture and nuance. I love barbecue, and so sweet potato and barbecue I think are just a match made in heaven, and I just love that combo. And Carolina barbecue sauce, I love this product here. It's great like a warm potato salad with celery and onion. You can throw it on chicken that just comes off the grill. We're using it today with our pork chop. And so what we're going to do is essentially bring this all together. Okay. Again, like 2 pots, maybe 3 for this particular dish. We're not trying to dirty up a bunch of dishes if we're making this during the week. We want it to be easy to execute while we're all busy. And so with that, I do want to highlight, we've talked about cutting techniques to make things efficient. When we cut them the same size, they cook in relatively the same amount of time. And then I want to also highlight when we bring this pork chop out and we slice into it, we want to look towards the bone. It's a fact that when you have a bone-in piece of meat, that degree of doneness is most undercooked near the bone. And so we always want to check there by touch or temperature. And then also want to note, we can see on this particular pork chop, we have the bone and then the meat around it. Maybe you've seen this on a show or a magazine or your local butcher shop, but I want to share with you Frenching. And so when you go to have your chop Frenched, you can clean up around the bone and expose that bone more. And so if you ever see that word Frenching, it just means that a butcher, or maybe you, we've cleaned up the bone, exposed it a little bit, and the aesthetic of that presentation is going to look a lot better. We removed some of the meat, the connective tissue, the fat around the bone, and now it's Frenched. And so recap, we've cut our vegetables the same size. We've talked about doneness for meat around the bone, and bonus, Frenching our bones. You could do this with a chicken breast as well. If you wanted to French the bone on a chicken breast, that's also an option. Okay, pot's getting hot. I'm gonna add some olive oil. And so here's what I wanna do. Today's message is really about sequencing. There's a structure, there's an order, there's a flow. There's a reason I started with the pork chop and we're gonna finish with the sauce. That took longer to cook for a minute, so while that's doing its thing, we're doing this thing, right? And so we wanna start with these diced onion and start to get some color. And so this is like a medium-high heat with just a little bit of oil. We don't need a whole lot of fat in here. We're getting some color. We want to get this started and start to cook. Now, I will note, like, you can sweat this onion, which is a lower heat to pull out moisture. Again, that's sweating. Or you can start to caramelize it, which is a little higher heat. Pulls out the natural sugars. It's hot enough to start to brown and get color. So you get to decide if you want color or no color. You can sweat or you can caramelize. But we're looking to kind of get a little bit of color here. A little bit of salt would be fine. And then we're going to add our sweet potato. Again, these are pre-cooked. We've made sure the moisture is removed. And we want them to get a little bit of color in the pan. And we probably want to stir them so they don't stick. We're building flavor. So when we sequence in the kitchen, we can build flavor, layers of flavor. And it's going to bring it all together, right? It's going to bring it all together. And so, again, we're cooking this onion. We're going to go ahead and add our sweet potato. Now, we're limited to 5 ingredients today. You could also add like a pinto bean if you want to have some more protein. You could also add celery or green chili or red bell pepper to this. This would be a great option as well if you had room for more ingredients. And so it really kind of expands that dish a little bit. But we're rock and rolling here. You've got some color in the pan. A little bit of salt and pepper will be fine. And then lastly, we're going to add this Tuscan kale. Now with this, you can add a little bit more of the olive oil, because at this point it's almost going to, like, not exactly braise, but it's going to cook down, and if you put a splash of water in there, it's kind of going to steam it through. You're going to see that kale kind of brighten up, right? And that olive oil is going to coat it. It's going to be kind of nice and really just come together. We want it to come together. And so you can see that here, right? We've got some beautiful colors going on. We've got the onions and the sweet potato. We've got our meat in the oven. And we're going to finish with the barbecue sauce. I'm going to go ahead and add a splash of water. You can kind of see what I'm talking about here. And let's check our chop. Let's check our chop. The magic of TV, that's what they used to say. We have 2 chops, so I'm going to show you that. I'm going to slice it up and put it on our plate. All right, now while it's doing that, beautiful. So I'll show you this. So this is our chop. So all of this, look at that. Yeah, wish I was hungry. So check it out. Beautiful caramelized sear, right? All this meat here, like all around the bone, if we Frenched it, and you can just go around it with the knife, there's a way to do that, scrape it off, et cetera, then you've got a beautiful bone. You got like 2 or 3 inches there that's beautifully exposed, and it just looks good on a plate. It just looks great on a plate. And so, again, that would be Frenching. And so now, the onion doesn't take but a few minutes. You can already tell what is this? The kale is nice and bright green. It's activated the cells, the chlorophyll in the cells, the water steamed it a little bit. The heat's kind of bringing out its moisture, et cetera, et cetera. And so now our sweet potatoes have cooked through, and they're rock and roll ready. So that looks great. Yes, it is a little hot. I do this all the time. Relax. I'm a professional. Okay. And so what we could do now is take a little bit of our veg here. A little bit of our veg here. I don't know. Feels right. What do you think? Maybe a little more veg. Maybe some green. That looks good. And then let's bring our chop over. I'm going to slice it up. So we kind of like to find the bone, right? We're just going to kind of cut into it. Maybe we throw this on the plate and be like fancy. All right, so pork is nice and juicy. If you wanted to brine it, maybe we save that for another episode. You could do that. We're going to slice it like this. Get a nice, beautiful crust. It looks good. It's going to taste good, and that bone, it just adds so much extra flavor to your proteins. If you can find bone in, that's what you want. Okay, we're going to fan this out. Nice and nice. All right, that'll be $39.99. The glass of wine. All right, so here we go. So if you wanted to, grab your spoon here. You can put this on as it comes out of the oven. We'll kind of glaze it and coat it. You can kind of just maybe let a little bit fall off the side. You can just go to town and let that dip. And so this is our composed dish for episode 3. We have a bone-in pork chop, sweet potato and onion hash with olive oil braised Tuscan kale. I'd eat that. All right, so today's mise en place moment. I noted earlier in the episode that when there's sequence, there's order. When there's sequence, there's structure. And so in the kitchen, I usually have a plan of action, a process to follow. And I've found that when I don't, things get scattered and the quality suffers. So as at work, if we don't have process and systems, sequence to create speed, our output suffers. And so if you are trying to prioritize, which we are, if you're trying to get clarity and have product progress and productivity, we need sequence and we need systems. And so think about that today. And also, if you need help with aligning teams, getting clarity, and increasing productivity, I have some resources for you below in the links. But this is episode 3 of Kev's Kitchen. Leave a comment below, and if you want to, subscribe. And until next time, hey, stay sharp.